Good Thursday afternoon to you. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Chris Zarabski. Let's get straight to your headlines. Breaking this afternoon, a federal judge is ordering the Trump administration to reinstate thousands of fired probationary workers. That judge said the directive to fire all probationary employees was not legal. The order instructs the Departments of Veterans Affairs, Defense, Energy, Interior, and Treasury to bring back the probationary employees that were fired last month. This is a rejection of arguments from the Department of Justice, who said the Office of Personnel Management's order to fire those probationary workers was merely guidance. A look from our nation's capital this afternoon, where Canadian officials are visiting to talk trade with the U.S. Secretary of Commerce. The main goal? Stop the back and forth with tariffs between the two countries. Retaliatory tariffs from Canada and the European Union are in effect today, just after President Trump's 25% tariff on imported steel and aluminum went into effect. Meantime, Secretary of State Marco Rubio taking part in the G7 summit happening right now in Canada, where this morning he met with Canadian Foreign Minister to talk trade. We'll see how things shake out after more threats from President Trump. Just this morning, Trump threatening 200% tariffs on alcohol, including champagne and wine, that's imported from Europe, in retaliation for the EU slapping tariffs on American goods, he said. Also breaking this afternoon, Russian President Vladimir Putin now saying he supports a ceasefire with Ukraine, but he may need to talk details with President Donald Trump before agreeing to anything. In a press conference this afternoon, Putin said that the Kremlin agrees with proposals to stop hostilities, but that there are issues that still need to be discussed. Putin suggesting that a temporary ceasefire gives Ukrainian forces an opportunity to regroup. Meantime, on the Ukrainian front line, soldiers are ready for fighting to stop. Richard Engel is in eastern Ukraine.
This is a pivotal moment in this conflict. After 3 years of fighting, the Ukrainian government, unilaterally so far, has accepted a Trump proposal for a 30-day ceasefire. Out here in frontline positions, soldiers tell us they're ready to accept it. And that is a new position. Generally, troops have told us that they can't stop fighting, that if they ease off the pressure, that Russia will just use the opportunity to build up its forces, to send in more artillery, to send in more drones. Ukrainians say they have no choice but to take that risk, that the country has taken a decision, President Zelensky has taken a decision to go down this path and to hope that President Trump can convince Vladimir Putin also to sign on to this peace deal. But with all that said, and with all their skepticism, Ukrainians say they have no choice but to go along with this process. That President Trump, who has a lot of power over Ukraine, he's already withheld intelligence sharing, he's already suspended temporarily the flow of arms, that they have no choice but to go along with this process. They agreed to this 30-day ceasefire, and now they'll see if President Putin will do the same. They don't think he will here. They think he's going to add conditions. But for now, the Ukrainians are sticking with it.
Right now, Pope Francis is still recovering in the hospital from double pneumonia as he marks a major milestone in his papacy. Today is the 12th anniversary of his election as Pope. As for his health, the Vatican says the pontiff is making gradual improvements and is no longer in immediate danger of dying. Developing right now, the U of M looking for a new head coach for their men's basketball team. Ben Johnson was fired shortly after a disappointing end of the Gophers men's season in Indianapolis at the Big Ten tournament there. They lost to Northwestern last night. Athletic director Mark Coyle, who said he met with the coach as soon as the Gophers returned to Minneapolis, they just lost their spot in the Big Ten tournament. Coyle said this, quote, "I thanked him for his dedication and for guiding the program, one he cares deeply about," end quote. The record shows, though, Johnson never had a winning season in his 4 years as coach. We expect Mark Coyle to hold a news conference soon for an update on their coach search, so we'll be tuning into that and bring it to you as soon as we get it. Right now, businesses inside St. Paul's Alliance Bank Center. Yes, it's Alliance, right? Okay, not the court, sorry. Right now, businesses inside St. Paul's Alliance Bank Center are breathing a tiny sigh of relief. That's after the building owned by Madison Equities gave them just 48 hours to get out. Mayor Melvin Carter tells us they now have until at least the end of the month. That short-term fix doesn't change the long-term troubles for downtown St. Paul. So our Kent Erdahl sat down to talk with someone who's focused on what's on the horizon.
With downtown St. Paul's only grocery store on the way out and businesses in one of several troubled buildings soon forced out, it can certainly feel like the skyline is falling.
When livelihoods and public safety are at the forefront, everybody involved is going to need to step up and making sure that it has the attention and priority that it needs.
For Dave Higgins, the first ever president of the St. Paul Downtown Development Corporation, that attention won't be on the day-to-day needs of tenants like it is for Mayor Carter and other city leaders who are trying to find landing spots for business owners in the Alliance Bank Center right now.
We're looking to solve for the next 50 to 75 years, not the next 3 years.
That means working with developers and lenders to remove barriers to redevelopment and speed the conversion of old, empty offices into new living spaces.
Our goal is to triple the downtown population. It sits around 10,000 right now. We'd like to see another 20,000.
But that's a tough sell right now, considering what's happening at Alliance Bank Center and other Madison Equities properties.
When you see something like that unfolding, and it's not the first time we've seen one of these properties kind of suddenly need support, what does that tell you?
Well, it continues to speak to the climate downtown needing a reset. The great part is the scale of the problem is the scale of the opportunity.
He points to a recent study of 20 downtown buildings that found half are good candidates for residential conversions. And with prices nearing rock bottom, he says it's a good time to get creative with the rest.
In some cases, that could mean removing those buildings and starting fresh.
Tearing them down.
Potentially.
Because, he says, sometimes the skyline has to fall in order for it to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what the turnaround's going to be about, for sure.
Developing right now in Connecticut, a woman is accused of holding her stepson captive for 20 years and subjecting him to extreme abuse and malnourishment. The 32-year-old was discovered only after a fire broke out of the family home in February. The man was 68 pounds at the time he was discovered, and he told police he set the fire inside the house to escape from his stepmom. Now, neighbors and a former principal to the man are speaking out, saying they suspected something was wrong years ago, but when it was reported, they say nothing happened.
We knew it. We reported it, not a damn thing was done. That's the tragedy of the whole thing. Sorry we couldn't do more because you went through more than any of us ever will go through in our lives.
The stepmom is facing multiple charges, including assault and kidnapping. During a court appearance this week, her attorney placed the blame on the stepson's biological father, who has since passed away. Today, 3 astronauts and a cosmonaut are preparing again to launch to the International Space Station. Crew 10 was supposed to lift off last night, but a problem occurred just 43 minutes to launch, forcing NASA and SpaceX to scrub it. This means another delay for Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, whose 10-day mission to the space station last summer has now lasted more than 9 months. The reason for the delay is not the rocket. It's with the hydraulic arm that extends from the launch pad and holds the rocket in place. Before Crew 10 can launch, NASA scientists need to understand and fix that issue. Right now, the best case scenario for the stuck astronauts is splashing down next Wednesday in either the Gulf or the Atlantic. NASA will try to launch again tomorrow evening. Happening right now in Chicago, crews are preparing for the annual tradition of dyeing the Chicago River that bright emerald green for St. Patrick's Day. It's been going on since the 1960s after a friend of the mayor of Chicago noticed that the dye that was used to find plumbing leaks turned the water bright green. The dyeing happens every year the Saturday before St. Patrick's Day. And according to the chairman of the St. Patrick's Day Parade, it was supposed to expand beyond the stretch of the water that runs through downtown Chicago.
He wanted to dye Lake Michigan, actually, which would have been quite a feat. And they went from dyeing Lake Michigan to dyeing the Chicago River.
Also, this is a two-boat job. One, the lead boat sprays the dye all over the water. The second boat, the follower, mixes and blends everything up. Oh, and St. Patrick's Day helps generate millions of dollars for Chicago's economy every year, according to their Chamber of Commerce. Adam Finsef's family now has a permanent reminder of their brother, their husband, their father. Adam was killed while responding to a domestic incident in Burnsville last year, and this week would have been his 42nd birthday. He loved to snowboard, loved taking his kids to Highland Hills. Now, hanging up in Highland Hills Ski Lodge in Bloomington is a snowboard, handmade by local artist Shane Anderson. That board has images of Adam's kids, along with some of his favorite things, and Papa in memory of their dad. A plaque nearby reads, quote, "May all who take to these slopes be reminded of Adam's beautiful spirit, and in his memory embrace adventure, enjoy every moment, laugh with loved ones, and show kindness to others." Stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.